guys are watching Screamo Cinema. This is Jake Suicide, and today I have a special guest.
I'm Dimitri from Phantoms Amongst the Ruin.
We are currently in the cemetery in Orange County, California. Tonight, I'll be interviewing the horrorcore king, Dimitri Phantom Norwood.
And the days fly faster than ever before, but I'm just giving up and keeping pace on life that I had before. There's a party on the dance floor, we can work it out, we can work it out. There's a party on the dance floor, we can work it out, we can work it out. There's a party on the dance floor.
Tell us a brief history of your band.
That's actually a pretty interesting question, honestly. So we started out as a three-piece, but there's so much more than that. I was in this band for a time. It was a metalcore band, much like Motionless in White, called Exordium. And needless to say, we did not end on a very good note. So after that, I decided I was sick of going to somebody else's tune. I took a few years off. I wrote a good chunk of material, music and lyrics, things really close to my heart. And I noticed that I was starting to form an idea. I was beginning to create beauty in my art. And I was really beginning to feel it, but I was also really starting to need it at the same time. And so eventually I had my finished chunk of material that I felt really good about. And I started looking for band members. Now originally, I live in Santa Ana. All of the members that I had found were in the Downey-Whittier area. So I was bussing it out there all day. It would take me like 5 hours to get there on a bus with all my gear. And we would rehearse. It began to grow. We started playing shows. And for one reason or another, the band started to downsize. Not privy to our own choices. And some of the people that I came in contact, affiliates if you will, they began to help the cause. We became friends with some bands along the way, some really good local artists. Shout out to you guys. And they began to have faith in what I was trying to do as well. And then we didn't have a vocalist for a show. And usually when that would happen, I would go out there and I would be playing guitar and doing vocals as a three-piece. And it's very hard to get a big sound out of that. It's very, very hard to sound like Titans. And so eventually a friend of mine from high school, Kiefer, you know him, you love him, he came on as our vocalist. Sometime after that, he hooked us up with a show at a little venue called Bridgetown. The runner has his own company called Questionable Creations. This man later became a co-vocalist of the band and a contributor of 2 core members. Just like that, we went from a 3-piece to a 6-piece, and that's where you'll find us now.
So you basically started Phantom Amongst the Ruins.
Exactly. I am a big fan of comic books and a big fan of music. One of my favorite bands, somebody who's influenced me greatly, My Chemical Romance. Everybody loves them. Now, what many people don't know is that their vocalist, Gerard Way, went to art school. And as well as him honing his makeup skills, he also honed the everlasting art of drawing, illustrations. He began doing comic books. Now, he has a comic book series called The Umbrella Academy. And it was in the panels of one of his various issues that I found a line that would change my life. Now, this comic book is about a bunch of children that were born from women that weren't pregnant all over the world, just randomly, out of nowhere, without any reason. And this man that took them in, these children all had special abilities. Later on in the series, one of the children would travel to the future. At a point in time where there is no future, a dystopian reality all its own. And the line goes, "There I stood, a phantom amongst the ruin." And it just clicked. Somebody who is all alone in the world, whether it be emotionally or literally, could be a figurative meaning, but in this sense it was quite literal. And it just got me thinking, what if all of the horrors of our reality, of our childhood, the very things that we made our parents check the closets and under our beds for when we were just tiny, before we could conceive the true meaning of evil and malevolence? What if all of these things were true? It was all real. Real as the reality that we know. It was just something that we kept our eyes closed to. And that's where it all came to be for me.
How would you describe your music?
I have a lot of influences, and sometimes it shows through. But the ones I try to focus the most on are My Chemical Romance, The Fearless Vampire Killers, Motionless in White, Marilyn Manson, Wednesday 13, and your guess is as good as mine where the rest of it comes from. But we take the minds of all these people who are truly in touch with the way that the world works. They're very intelligent individuals and marketing geniuses. Probably the biggest influence of all time would be the Misfits. You see, the Misfits were the first group to combine elements of metal and punk in their music while adding an eerie ambience to it by adding a horror influence. And, you know, horrorcore is a very small genre, and in my opinion, it's a genre that didn't really get as much exposure and appreciation as it should have, because the Misfits have inspired so many bands, so many generations, and they were such a good band that no other band could shine in their light. It threw off the balance, and nobody else to them. They're the only horror punk band. But there's so many others, as well as some Misfits cover bands that have come to fruition and become some great bands all their own. And so what I wanted to do was take a genre that I believe was underappreciated and underrated, and add modern elements like metalcore and create horrorcore in a more modern light, properly executed, good references, subject matter is all there, and just kind of make it shine. Maybe get other bands to follow and create a movement that unites everybody, whether it be pop, metal, punk, what have you. Emo. I want them all in the same room at these shows because these bands carry all the same torch as those genres and unite everybody, because in the end, in the mosh pit, there are no labels. We're all fans and we're all family.
So earlier you said that you write your own music. What inspires your music?
My music, well, urban legend to real life serial killers to the stuff you see in movies. So, whether it be our song Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, which is a comic book, or Slender Man, The Arrival, we wrote a song called The Arrival, or, just the stuff of nightmares. We have a song called Night Terrors, which is about this reoccurring dream that I've had since I was a child that caused me to break out in violent fits in my sleep. And fear inspires. It manifests itself in everyday life to things that we relate to, whether it be things that just make us anxious or things that make us piss in our pants. There are so many ways to define a fear, and to me, my music is a way of both expressing, respecting, and facing those fears.
So this is Jake Suicide.
And Dimitri Phantom Nordley.
Catch us next time on Screamo Cinema for part 2 of the interview.